There are just a handful of skins left now. In this video, I finish off the last 5, let's just say regular skins that I released before changing my style. So we're starting off this video with quite a bang. I will not be afraid to admit in any way, shape or form that I have been dreading this skin pretty much the moment I decided to remake all of my first 50 or 45 or 40 or whatever the actual number of skins was, but the point is all my skins up to mid-October 2021. And I knew that this skin was going to be particularly difficult or annoying. And the main reason for that was the skyscrapers, which are the colored lines that you see me doing around the waist. I mean, it kind of is the waist, but it's a little too high, so it's just kind of around the torso, really. It's just around the entire t-shirt, I guess. But I knew that part was not going to be very fun because I had to keep changing colors while still making the shading appear, which could be really difficult. And just in general, try to make that look good, even if you manage to get the effect right, can be a little tricky. If you're familiar with the original skin, you may notice one big change I've made right away, and that's that I changed the background color of the t-shirt from a bluish shade to a kind of more purplish lavender. I should probably mention that this skin is inspired by the cover art for Bishu City. Now, the cover art for City is quite complex. If you look at it, it has a typical city skyline, but then it has all these colors on top of it. So they're these, well, they're not that weird of shades, but it's even the individual buildings vary in color from top to bottom. So trying to represent that was never going to be easy. But the skin as a whole, apart from that, isn't really too bad. There are the usual parts of the skin that are pretty easy to do. It's just the same kind of deal every single time. So that includes shading the arms and shading the legs and even doing most of the hair. I decided on a pretty simple pattern for the hair here, but I did spend a little bit of time going back and forth between the color of the hair. And that's just something that that's something that just sometimes happens when I'm doing hair. I decide to desaturate it after I'm a little bit into shading. So as you see here, I start shading the darkest tones, but it all looks too saturated. So I decide to desaturate the hair, and now things look a lot better. And then I continue on doing the rest of the hair, which, as I mentioned previously, is pretty easy. And then other parts of the skin, I've already mentioned how those are easy. Front hair sometimes causes difficulty, but in this skin I went for a very simple pattern, so that wasn't an issue. And yeah, overall the rest of the skin again wasn't really that bad. It was just doing the buildings of the city that actually caused me problems. And even then, they weren't actually that bad in the end. It was kind of more me dreading them than actually doing them. So as you see here, as I finish up the hair, I will soon move on to doing the buildings of the city. And yeah, trying to get the effect of the shading while also making it look good, while also keeping faithful to the cover art, is not easy. But as you'll see, I think I did alright. I think the bit at the side might look a little too dark, as you can see just there on those cyan shades, the dark cyan. I think that might look a little too dark compared to everything else. But overall, for such a difficult effect to pull off, I think I did alright. I mean, I don't think I did amazing, alright? I'm not Cardi, I'm not Korg, but I think I did decent enough. And then I just decided to do these little extra details on the ends of the shorts that I sometimes do, sometimes I don't. It's just like for a little bit of variety. And there we go, that's the skin for Bishu City. Next up today we have the remake of the skin for Kasbo Kaleidoscope. Now, Kasbo Kaleidoscope is another one of those future-based songs. I think I banged on about this already in the video that had World Triumph. But basically, Kasbo Kaleidoscope came out at a time when future bass was fresh and new, and it didn't really have the sort of connotations that future bass has now, or even future bass had in, say, 2015 and 2016. And it is at that point where I need to mention, yes, Kasbo Kaleidoscope is very different to the future bass that often gets criticism for being too basic or too cheesy or too happy. It is very different, even more so than World Triumph. It's like actually quite somber in tone for a future bass song. Now, that is a very relative statement to make about future bass. It's still not a particularly dark song. It's just not like over the top, in your face, happiness, everything is amazing. It's a little deeper, a little calmer, you know, more reflective. And again, that was also true with some other early future bass songs. So, like World Orbit has some cutesy elements to it, but it also isn't like oversaturated. You know, that one's kind of like that. But then Rogue Perfect Views is a very good example of what I'm talking about as well. But I mean, I'm not just here to talk about the music, I need to talk about the skin as well. So this skin was much simpler to do than the last one, even though it did have a trick up its sleeve, or rather on the front, and that was redoing the well, it's not really a rainbow, it's just like a color gradient that goes roughly from cyan to magenta. It's kind of a bluish color, not quite cyan. You can see it there. You know, make up your own mind on what shade you want to call that. But anyway, yeah, I had to redo that gradient, which really wasn't that bad. I just used the HSL shift function in PMC Skin 3D. And that's something that the Planet Minecraft editor has going for it over the Skindex editor, alongside being able to use HSV values, which you'll notice is the color classification, I guess, that I always use. So I don't really deal with hex. I know a little bit of HSL, but I mostly deal with HSV. And yeah, it's great that the Planet Minecraft editor supports that. So there you just have me add in the I guess, what would you call them? Holographic sunglasses. Yeah, that's a good term. And then just need to shade the ponytail. And there we go. That's the remake of the skin for Kasbo Kaleidoscope. Much quicker than the last one, as you can tell. Moving on from Kaleidoscope, we have the third skin, which is based on another song by Bishu. This one is Bomb, which was one of his first songs on the label, all the way back in 2017. And even now, when I say that, I think, okay, yeah, that wasn't that long ago, but that was 5 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about. What's even crazier to think about is that was actually when I got interested in Monster Cat. So I've been into Monster Cat now for 5 years. Although I will admit, I'm not very well caught up on anything that released after about 2019. So, you know, I mostly know about the old stuff that came out long before I got interested in the label. But anyway, Bomb by Bishu is a song that gets debated a little bit. It's like not the most memorable song out there, so people don't really talk about it that much now. But back when it came out, some people really did not like it because they thought it sounded too screechy, which is fair enough. A lot of trap like that was coming out around that time, to an extent. I mean, you also had more melodic stuff. But anyway, this skin was quicker than the first one, but actually took me about as long as the skin for Kaleidoscope, even though in theory it's a simpler skin. And the reason for that was that I kept switching colors, or like I couldn't really decide on what exact shade of brown I wanted to use for the shorts, or what shade of orange I wanted to use for the hair. Basically, the cover art of Bomb works so that I forget what order it's in. I don't know if orange is on top or the blue is on top. I think orange is on the bottom, but that might be wrong. But anyway, it goes in like a gradient that starts off with this like burnt orange color, and then that color like lightens. It goes to like lighter shades of orange, so kind of yellowish tone that like gets almost white in the middle before shifting towards more bluish tones, and then those start to get more saturated as you go towards the other end. So I tried to represent all those blues and oranges in this skin, and I think I did a decent job. Most of the skin, as usual, shading was really not an issue. You know, doing the arms, the legs, the face, most of the hair is fine. Doing the front hair took me a brief decision to make. It was actually relatively quick to do as far as front hair is concerned. And then, you know, all the other sides is the same kind of deal as always. Can get a little mundane at times, just because you're doing the same thing every single time on those parts. But at least it means you get the thing done quickly, because you don't spend ages just figuring out how exactly you want to shade things. So all of that comes together. Just do the eyes now here towards the end, and then I'll finish off a few final details, and there we go. We have the remake of the skin for Bishu Bomb. Next up, we have the remake of the skin for Atmozfears Lose It All. Now, Lose It All is a song that, when it came out, I instantly fell in love with it. Like, I was obsessed with it for something like a week. I could not stop listening to it. That song single-handedly got me to take a proper listen to his other song on the label, which was State of Mind. I actually made two skins, actually, for State of Mind. And that was because I came up with a sort of interesting concept for those skins. I mean, it wasn't that interesting, but at the time I was pretty proud of myself for coming up with it. So you'll notice with the hair here, I go through a couple of different styles before settling on something rather plain, but at least it'll be easy to work with, and it's still not going to look bad. So this skin in general is fairly simple. It's much simpler than the first two anyway. It's basically just a boy, like a summer gamer boy, with headphones and quite a cool design on his t-shirt, but maybe I'm biased because I have a bunch of t-shirts like that one, where they have like three colors laid out horizontally. I don't know, is that pattern particularly popular in Spain or something? Because they're like all Pull and Bear, which is a Spanish clothing brand. You might be familiar with it if you're in Spain or the UK or Ireland. But yeah, in general, this skin was very easy to get through when it came to shading. So, I mean, the arms and the legs are never really a big deal, but even the parts that sometimes slow me down, those didn't really get in the way at all. So I ended up finishing this skin faster than the three skins before it, although the one after it was still quicker than that one yet again, which is kind of interesting. Doing the hair here now, you'll notice that I actually used hue 45 for the hair, and that's something I don't really do that often. I do it occasionally, but it's mostly for blonde hair. I don't really do it for like hair this dark, but I decided to do it in this one, as I did in the original, and it kind of got me thinking maybe I should try that a little bit more. But sometimes it can look too earthy, or maybe even like too washed out, or in certain cases like too yellow. So I generally avoid it to an extent, but you know, maybe it'd be an idea to try it again. What do you think? I think in this skin it definitely turned out well. Just finishing up the final details, and there we have it. Let's now move on to the last skin of the video. That's right, this video has 5 skins instead of the usual 4, because that's just how things worked out. And this skin is the remake of the skin for Subtact Tunnel Vision. Now, earlier I talked about like future bass and how it was different early on. Tunnel Vision is actually quite a good example of that over-the-top happy future bass, but to be fair to Tunnel Vision, it's done extremely well. It is a euphoric song, it is very happy, but at the same time, it's very enjoyable. I will not hesitate to say that one bit. And even then, it's still not like as over-the-top happy as some future bass songs out there. Looking at you, Hyper Potions. Just kidding, I love you guys too. But yeah, that's basically what there's to say about future bass in relation to Tunnel Vision. This skin was pretty simple to do. It's actually the shortest skin in terms of duration in this entire video. So like all the skins took longer than this one. And that's fair enough. I mean, this skin is definitely the simplest out of all of them. Like, honestly, that hat doesn't even add on time, because that's time I would have lost anyway trying to do the top of the head, because that takes a bit of time, and it's actually much faster when you just have a hat on there. And then there are the usual parts of the skin that are very quick to shade, as I think I've mentioned in every single skin in this video. So that includes the legs and the arms and all that jazz. And one other thing about this skin is it has like a slightly wintry undertone to it. Like not super wintry, but it's like maybe something that you'd expect to see someone wearing in the winter of somewhere that gets mild winters. So like where I live in Ireland, temperature wise, the winters are quite mild. Now, rain and wind, that's a different story, but in terms of temperature, it's really not that bad. So you could definitely see someone wearing this in the winter where I am. Yeah, that's basically the skin done. You know what comes next after making the skins? Let's look at old and new side by side. Believe it or not, there's only one part left in this series. In that video, I finally go back and remake my 4 most unique skins released before changing my style. So if you're interested in that, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell to enable notifications. If you like this video, then be sure to click the like button down below as well. Thanks for watching, and have a good night or day.